We're going to get started in just a couple minutes, but let me also say that there are some coolers kind of situated around the park a little bit. There's water in there, so please feel free to help yourself. We also have more cards and pens on this table over here, so if you want to ask a question of the candidates, please come up. Either Ruth or Faye will bring them to you, or you can come up to the table and sign them up. And like I said, we'll get started in just a few minutes. And again, don't forget you can register to vote or fill out an application for a mail-in ballot over by the registrar's tables. And the candidates have information over under the pavilion.
Wood though, Gail, don't mess it up. How is the Y doing? Good. Yeah, for sure. Nobody knows what's going to happen next week. Oh, yeah. Great. Can we sit down through the whole thing or stand up? Or stand up? Okay. You get to sit down and talk?
No.
Okay. Oh, great. Okay. Yeah.
What church is that? What church is that? Well, it's Presbyterian. Okay. I love that. How many churches do that?
My mom's cousins did the same last year. They did the same last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Original church done and my sister.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so they've done the fries thing last. They've done all sorts of things.
So, are those real filmings or is it cam? Somebody's over there filming. Oh, no. It's still nice. You can buy. That's still nice. No, from the power. It's just that it's done by.
Yeah.
My dad used to drag me to filming concerts and that's people. And we still have them. That's right. I remember.
Sounds sacred. Even though I know it's not. The one at Gordon Moore really sounds like it. Maybe that's why. It's a good question. How many kids do we have? We have 4.
Oh, that's not bad.
Not bad. It's not crazy yet. We'll get there. We have 3 boys and a girl.
So how many grandkids are there?
Oh, that. There are 37. Yes. My sister is about to have twins. Becky. Margo. Yeah. She's going from 6 to 8.
Oh, God.
I know. I don't know how she does it. I think they might might be unstable. Allison's starting to get that look. She's got 7. One of my other sisters has 9. She's, I don't think she would be able to. Yeah, at a certain point it got really crazy. Even my sister and I just that happened. Well, we know how it happened.
Well, your dad and mom used to teach all practical courses.
NFT, yeah. Natural understanding. That was so embarrassing.
Even when you're on the phone.
That was so embarrassing when I was a kid. My dad would always joke that, yeah, in the Hayne household, there's a lot more natural family.
Gail,
Your dad looks
can
like
you announce one more time about what's going on here and about the new cards and then
I
we'll
guess
get
it was
started?
about 2 years ago.
Pretty well. He had a knee replacement, and then he had pneumonia. So we thought that might be COVID.
Okay, we're just waiting for the Carillion bells to stop. That should be a couple more minutes, but in the meantime, again, if you want to register to vote or fill out an application for an absentee ballot, or mail-in ballot, I'm sorry, go on over to those 2 tables under the tree. If you want to write down a question for the candidates, Ruth and Faye are circulating with cards. We also have some index cards and pens on this table up here. It stopped. Okay. Are you ready? Okay, so we're going to get started, and we're going to have welcoming remarks from Dorothy Hummel, who is it's close enough. She is the Executive Director of the YWCA of Alton.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the YWCA Get Out the Vote project and the Board of Directors, I want to welcome you to the first Voters Forum for 2020. Tonight we'll be hearing from 3 candidates for Madison County offices: County Board Chair, State's Attorney, and the Circuit Clerk. As Gail said, I'm Dorothy Hummel, Executive Director at YWCA, and I've had the privilege of serving in that position for over 3.5 years. The rich mission of eliminating racism and empowering women, along with my true love for Madison County, has led me to the YWCA. Working for YW fits with my 32 years experience in community development arena in Madison County. During these years, I also became involved in the Edwardsville League of Women Voters. While I served on the board, my true love was the Voter Service Committee. In my opinion, the voter service forums and the debates were the most important services that we provided. That experience provided me with the framework to speak up on topics including green space and reducing the sizes of city councils from 14 to 7. Speaking up has its benefits. As things go, one thing led to another, and I found myself serving as an alderman for the city of Edwardsville for 9 years, and also on the Edwardsville School Board for an additional 8. During these years, I interacted with Madison County Board Chairman, the state's attorneys, and various county departments, including the Health Department. As an alderman, I chaired the Public Safety Committee, and it worked closely with the Police Department. But back to the YW. YW has a 100-plus year history serving the RiverBend community. We offer high-quality child enrichment programs, provide free community tutoring. We work with youth to transform lives through circles that promote resiliency and healthy relationships. We serve as a community center, and we provide racial and social justice programming that's vital throughout the year. Empowering communities to engage in civic life is an important part of YWCA's commitment to eliminating racism and empowering women. Participating in the electoral process through voting is one way to shape the policies and laws that affect our everyday lives. Being on a board or a commission can also be a wonderful and enlightening experience. Holding public office and serving one's community is both a privilege and a true responsibility. These are challenging times we're living in. The death of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and countless others are just the latest evidence of violence and brutality today in our country. Across the nation and in Madison County, protests have been held and continue to be held against police brutality and systemic, institutional, and individual racism. The COVID pandemic has hit us hard, affecting 3.9 million Americans, killing over 143,000 people. In Madison County, Yesterday, we learned that of 62 new cases, there are 71 deaths today, and a positivity test rate of 7.5%. We know COVID disproportionately affects persons of color, and unfortunately, this is true even in Madison County. New unemployment claims rose by 1.4 million last week. Every day we read about businesses declaring bankruptcy, federal unemployment aid possibly stopping at the end of July, evictions and foreclosures soon to rise. Families and business are truly struggling at levels not seen since the Great Depression. Local elections are important. Decisions made by local governments and elected officials truly have an effect on our daily lives. The candidates you'll hear from this evening are seeking offices that affect law enforcement, public health, numerous important boards and commissions, county tax levy, and court services. The county board chair prepares and oversees an annual budget of $120 million. The board chair presides over county board meetings, assigns board members to committees that work closely with county offices to execute the business of Madison County. Board chair assigns members from the community to serve on boards and commissions. Some of these are voluntary and some are paid. The county board passes all ordinances, rules, and regulations to implement the powers granted to counties. The board approves all contracts and expenditures and supervises and approves grants. The county board has the power to levy a tax annually, and this typically is about $30 million. The primary role of the state's attorney is to serve as the chief law enforcement officer and legal advisor for Madison County. It's the responsibility of the state's attorney to ensure that laws are faithfully executed in order to maintain the rule of the law. With a staff of roughly 60 people, the office has different divisions and special prosecution units to help protect children, women, the elderly, animals, consumers, and merchants. The office also works to secure special grants for projects as the trends change through the years. In addition, the state's attorney sets policies and guidelines that impact the administration of justice by more than 25 law enforcement agencies that operate in Madison County. That's a big deal. The overall mission of the circuit clerk's office is to file and process state and local court cases, collect fines and fees, maintain and certify court records, store court exhibits, clerk trials, and process all paper records on behalf of the courts. In Madison County, the circuit clerk's office is divided into 4 main areas: civil, family, felony, and traffic. And there's a separate section, document imaging and archives, and that's responsible for imaging, preserving, and storing court records. These are very important offices that are on the ballot this November, in my mind. I want to thank the YWCA Get Out the Vote Project for the important work to engage voters in the 2020 election with registration, forums, and ultimately ensuring that folks participate at election time. We would not be here tonight without this group. I also want to thank my fellow citizens who have the courage to place their names on the ballot. Pew Research Center says only 2% of people run for office. And still, with what seems that most of us consider with little reward, the American ideals of freedom and choice in voting live on. You who run for this office make that happen. Your time, attention, and interest to this community are truly appreciated. You're to be commended and congratulated no matter what the outcome of the election is. The United States is built on the foundations of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The freedom to vote and have our voices heard is fundamental to our democracy. We know that voting is critical to ensuring a healthy, safe, empowered future for our communities. Please make sure you, your friends, and your loved ones are registered to vote. Double check your registrations, get educated, and be sure you cast your ballots. I'd also like to introduce the moderator for this event. Rosetta Brown is a lifelong resident of this great city of Alton. She's the mother of 3 wonderful children and a member of Webster Temple Church. She's a community leader and an organizer, serving as the secretary of the Alton branch of the NAACP. She's a member of the Alton School Board, and she's also a COVID-19 tracker. She's a council member of Boy Scouts of America and a mentor to many young people, and proud daughter to her mother who's been blessed with 84 years and still counting. Ms. Brown has received numerous honorable mentions, including the all-important 2020 YWCA Women of Distinction. She's well known in her community because of her level of involvement and commitment to service and empowerment, and it's my pleasure to introduce Miss Rosetta Brown.
Good evening, everybody. All right, we're here. We want to get fired up and we want to get ready to go. So repeat after me. Fired up, ready to go. Fired up, ready to go. Fired up, ready to go. Woo! Yes. Tonight we are here to heighten voter participation and to introduce to you the 2020 candidates and their initiatives. Now, we do have a format to this evening. It's just so good to see all of you, all the distinguished guests. Each and every one of you are distinguished on tonight. Let's give yourselves a hand. All right. This program will be broken down into segments based on office, starting with the state's attorney office. Each segment of the agenda will begin with candidates being prompted by the moderator to introduce themselves and make an opening statement. Each candidate can take up to 2 minutes during this portion of the program. Number 2, before asking the questions during each segment, I will begin the section by introducing the subject before reading the question. Number 3, the candidate who the question is directed to will be given 2 minutes to respond to the question. Once the first candidate has answered the question, the next candidate will have the option of taking up to 2 minutes to answer the same question before I move on to the next. Upon completion of the prepared question portion of each segment, we will gather written questions from the audience and will read up to 3 for each elected office. Candidates will be given up to 2 minutes to reply to audience questions. Number 5, at the end of each segment, I will announce the next office and candidates, and we will keep going from there. And we have a timekeeper, Mr. A. Borham. He's our timekeeper for tonight. Throughout the forum, a designated timekeeper, who is Abe, will be positioned near the candidates and moderator and will hold up signs to indicate how much time is left for each response. The signs will notify candidates when they have 1 minute left, 30 seconds left, 10 seconds left, and then stop. Once the stop sign has been raised, candidates will be allowed to finish their sentence, and I will move on with the program. All right, let's get this party started. The first office will be the state's attorney's office, and we're going to ask each candidate to introduce themselves, and we will start with Crystal Huey.
Thank you, Rosie, and thank you to the YWCA for hosting the forum tonight. My name is Crystal Uwe, and I'm running for state's attorney. I'm the current first assistant state's attorney, and I've dedicated my entire career to working at the state's attorney's office, fighting for victims of violent crimes, of abuse, of neglect. I started at the state's attorney's office in 2005 as a file clerk, and I've worked my way up through the office over the course of the next 15 years to the position that I hold now. I've worked in nearly every division and held nearly every management position within the office. I've spent the last 7-8 years in the violent crimes division prosecuting the worst of the offenders in Madison County. During that time, I've participated in over 50 prosecutions of murder cases. I've prosecuted predatory criminal sexual assault cases, criminal sexual assault cases, and I supervise an office of 32 attorneys and over 20 support staff currently. I supervise all of the treatment courts, including our drug court, our mental health court, our veterans court. I was part of the Elder Abuse Initiative for the State's Attorney's Office and the Domestic Violence Accountability Court. I also serve in the community on multiple board of directors. I am on the board of directors here in Alton at Senior Services Plus, and I also have served on the board of directors for Phoenix Crisis Center in Granite City. I'm also on the board of directors for the, thank you, for the Child Advocacy Center in Wood River as well. I teach at Lewis and Clark Community College in the School of Criminal Justice, and I also teach for SILEC, the Southern Illinois Law Enforcement Commission for Law Enforcement Officers. It is my passion to fight for victims here in Madison County, and once elected, not only will I be the first female state's attorney, but I will be the most experienced trial attorney to ever hold this position. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you, Rosetta. Thank you, Gail, for putting this together. This is incredible, especially today in 2020. Voter engagement, registration, getting people involved and educated about the issues is so key in our country, and this is how we build a better future. So I appreciate everybody putting this together. My name is Tom Hain. I am running for state's attorney. I'm from here, literally this park. I learned how to swing on those swings when I was a Park and Rec ump. I picked up my paycheck back when Park and Rec was in this building. My dad grew up down on Royal Street. I lived on Liberty Street. I still live on Liberty Street. So this is quite literally my backyard, and I'm so proud to be from here. This is my home. And that's why I'm running for state's attorney. I feel a passion to make our future, our community's future, better, safer. And the best way to do that is through ensuring that crime never gains a hold in our community, that we can make every neighborhood in our community safer tomorrow than it is today. And that's what I learned when I was in the military. I joined the military. I was in ROTC in college, and I took the oath to defend the Constitution because I love it. I love our country, and I think it's a fantastic place to be. I apologize, there's a drone that's about to attack me. I think, didn't know there was going to be a drone. Who said there was going to be a drone? 2020, that's where we're at. So I joined the military, and I became a military prosecutor. I was a military prosecutor at Fort Drum, which is one of the largest bases in the military. I prosecuted felony cases. I also prosecuted cases in the federal court system. So I know what it means to bring a case to trial and to put the bad guys away. And that's the fundamental job of the state's attorney, and that's where I'll keep a laser focus. We need to make sure that we have safe communities, and that involves aggressive but fair prosecution of crimes in Madison County. And I want to serve my home. I want to serve my town. I want to make this town, which is, I'm a 5th generation Altonian, better for my kids who are going to live here. And they're 6th generations Altonian. They're kind of running around. You'll probably see them. They're wearing the Hanes shirts, which they refuse to take off. So I want to make it better for everybody because this is where I live. So safety first, fairness, and make this community better tomorrow than it is today. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. I'd love to answer any questions you have. And if we don't have a chance to answer all the questions here and now, please come talk to me, and I'm an open book. So I appreciate it, and I'd be honored to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for your wonderful introduction. We are getting ready to move on with our questions to our state's attorneys candidates. And Crystal, I don't know why I said Uwe. I know it's Uwe, so forgive me for that. All right, the first subject is school to prison pipeline. School to prison pipeline. Starting with Tom Hain, this is a question about what you would do as state's attorney to diffuse the school to prison pipeline problem that exists. There is a good research that shows Black and Latino students are frequently punished more harshly than white students for the same behaviors. Student resource officers are located in most public schools, and it has become more the norm for these SROs to arrest students for fighting rather than attempting other interventions. As the state's attorney, what would you do to prevent the criminalization of young people in our schools?
Thank you for the question. It's a great question, and it's a really difficult issue, and it, frankly, can't be addressed in 2 minutes, but I'll do my best. I think the best way to answer that is with certain principles that you have to have in mind. First one is you have to make sure that before crimes become serious, very serious, violent crimes, that you give people a way to have an off-ramp out of the life of crime. You give people second chances. You give people trust that the system isn't out to get them. And so that is an ethos that I think will guide the discretion of prosecution of crimes under my administration. Because kids need to know that there is a difference between a hardened criminal and someone who has just made a mistake. And so that discretion is a key part of prosecution. And that's why the integrity and the character of prosecutors is so important. That's not a charge that I took lightly when I was in the Army, and that's not a charge that I will take lightly as state's attorney. I will answer it this way. When I was a prosecutor in the Army, we had a program where we would take kids who were getting in trouble on Army bases, and we would put them through a version of a diversion program. We have other forms of that here in Madison County, but we would put them through a diversion program where we try to scare them straight, right? It wouldn't be a criminalization, but it would be a very official proceeding that would try to scare them straight to get them off of the life of crime, right? Because a lot of these are kids, and we need to understand that. I was a kid, and people make mistakes. So we have to have a fair ethos of second chances with also a strong sense that when you cross that line between a mistake and a violent crime that harms the community, that puts people at risk, that has victims, that will not stand in Madison County, that we cannot have a culture that allows those kind of crimes to remain unpunished. So second chances, an off-ramp out of the life of crime, but strong and strict punishment when that crime is violent and when it's harming our communities. Thank you.
So I think in order to stop the pipeline from schools to prison, I think you have to start with the schools. And I think as state's attorney, I think it's incumbent on our office to make sure that we are present in the schools, that we go to the schools, we talk, we educate, and we talk about the criminal justice system, and we provide resources to students, to learn basic life skills and self-esteem to keep them from falling into the criminal pattern. You mentioned school resource officers. School resource officers are an important part of the educational system, but I think it's important to really educate everybody and educate those officers that they're there to protect the students and establish community relationships and a level of trust at an early age. The school resource officers aren't there to necessarily arrest people. They're there to protect the students. And then when juveniles find themselves in the unfortunate position of getting caught with drugs, alcohol, or any of the minor crimes that juveniles often find themselves with, I think it's important to find diversion and ways to avoid arrest and conviction and entering into the court system for those individuals. Here in Madison County, the state's attorney's office participates in the juvenile diversion program. And for anybody that doesn't know what that is we work with community stakeholders. We work with the probation department, with the local law enforcement, with the school resource officers in order to divert offenders that are underage into a program where they learn, again, life skills, how to balance a checkbook, how to interview appropriately for a job, how to improve their self-esteem, how to avoid drugs, drug prevention, alcohol prevention. And if those individuals complete that 12-week program, then they don't have a conviction on their record. They don't have a criminal history. And it's actually working. In Madison County, the arrests for individuals 18 to 22 is down 33% since 2010. So our programs are working, and I think all we can do is expand those and really do more in the schools.
Thank you. The next subject is annual expungement program. We're going to start with Crystal first and then Tom. A Second Chance Saturday was held on September 14, 2019 in Madison County, provided by Simmons Henley Conroy Law Firm and Madison County's 3rd Judicial Circuit. On September 27, 2019, Madison County Employment and Training held an expungement program with Land of Lincoln attorneys and Madison County clerk staff. We understand that MCET received a 2-year grant in 2019 to provide this program. As you know, expungement is a legal court order which destroys a criminal record and removes it from public view. Some records cannot be expunged due to conviction, but may be eligible to be sealed, limiting access to them. An important benefit of expungement and or sealing of records, of course, is that persons have an easier time seeking employment or higher paying employment. Would you, as state's attorney, commit to making sure that an expungement program is held at least twice per year, working with various community providers to help people with criminal records get a job?
Absolutely. The purpose of expungements is to allow people to better their position by either sealing or expunging past criminal history so that they can seek employment, maybe driving privileges or something like that. I'm proud to say I have not only participated in every single expungement day that we've had in Madison County, but I've also helped organize the state's attorney participation for each and every one of them, including the Alton Road to Work that we did last year. The expungement day, sorry, the drone had distracted me. Sorry, yeah. But not only, twice a year isn't enough, is what I want to say. We actually hold expungement court every single month. But the problem is not everybody knows how to file for expungement. They don't know how to get the paperwork in. So working with Amy Gabriel in the circuit clerk's office, we have to make these forms and these court processes more available. The expungement days are great because we actually identify economically impacted areas, and we bring the courthouse actually to those areas. We've had them in Madison and Granite City, here in Alton, and to make it easier. But as state's attorney, I want to make the expungement process more available to everyone, not just twice a year, or not just at the organized expungement days. Thank you.
It sounds like a great idea. I think expungement is a great tool. You know, expungement allows people to remove from their record things that make it difficult for them to have a job. But that raises a different issue. Why is it hard to get a job if you have a criminal history? It shouldn't be as difficult as it is. People use it as a tool to judge a person's entire life. But if you go to prison or if you are punished for a crime, you have done your societal penance, and you need to be put back into civil society. That's the whole point of a punishment system. It's not a life sentence for every criminal, and the system needs to take that into account. So expungement is one tool, but it needs a cultural change, and that's why I appreciate people like John Simmons who helped to do that expungement program, and he knows the value of this. And these civil servants, people in civil society who come together and help change the culture around criminal histories, it's not a life sentence for everyone. We need to make sure that's the case. It's also a great tool for individuals to come and show that they can have a second chance, because we need to be strong on violent crime. Violent crime can never get a foothold in Madison County, but we need to be forgiving, and we need to have second chances over small crimes that should not affect a person's employability. So I hope to be a leader in that through whatever way I can, through expungement programs, through advocacy in the community, and through all those different ways that civil society comes together to say, look, we are all Americans, we all have the right to a job, and just because I have a criminal history doesn't mean I shouldn't be able to get any job. So whatever I can do in that regard, I will do. But you shouldn't take the eye off the ball either. Our first duty as state's attorney is to make sure that crime does not pay in Madison County. Crime does not pay in Madison County, but it's not a life sentence for every person, for every crime. That's unfair.
Thank you. The next subject is cash bail. We're going to start with Tom, followed by Crystal. In our country and in counties across the state, the vast majority of people in jail are being held pre-trial, meaning they haven't yet been proven guilty. They are simply held. They are simply there because they cannot pay their bond. Prosecutors have discretion in recommending the pretrial conditions and bond amount to the judge. Additionally, legislation has been introduced that would abolish cash bail altogether, and the Illinois Supreme Court Commission on Pretrial Practices has recommended, among other things, expanding the ability of law enforcement to issue citations instead of arresting people and preventing people from being incarcerated pre-trial because they cannot pay money or cash bond. If elected, would you commit to ending the recommendation of pre-trial detention and cash bond and support legislation to end cash bond?
So the nice thing about running for state's attorney is it's not a policy-based position, so I don't get a vote on whether or not there is or isn't this law. That would be, different races. Some candidates are here. But frankly, my position on cash bail is that it's an important tool for law enforcement. And it can be abused, and so you need to have trustworthy people who are recommending cash bail for certain cases. But it's an important tool, and especially in violent crimes, especially where there are serious offenders, you have to have a way to make sure that these folks show up to court. And so this is a tool that can be abused, but it's a very important tool, and I think we shouldn't just get rid of it wholesale. We should use it surgically and when necessary. But I would say this is part of a broader problem. When you have a system that is taking too long to expedite these cases, when you have cases that are taking 1.5 years, 2 years, 3 years to resolve themselves, that's when these bail systems become so onerous. Because you have persons sitting in jail who can't make bail, right, for a year, 2 years, for a crime that should be expedited and should be resolved. When I was in the JAG Corps, when I was in the military, if I had a case that took longer than a year to resolve, especially if it's a guilty plea, I'd have a commander calling me every day. I probably wouldn't have a job very long. These cases are taking too long. We need to, I believe fundamentally, justice delayed is justice denied. We need to move these cases, we need to move them quick, we need to move them well, and that I think will create a system where you don't have these terribly unjust scenarios where people are in jail, can't make bail for a long period of time. But I do think cash bail is an important tool, and it's an important tool for law enforcement. It shouldn't be abused, but it can be used well. Thank you for the question.
So the purpose of having a bail or a cash bail amount is to secure someone's appearance in court until they stand trial for that particular offense. It's not supposed to be punitive, and certainly it should not be based on someone's ability to pay. So I do support the measures that allow for different factors to come into play. There's many factors that come into play in setting an amount of bond and a bond determination. Ties to the community, criminal history, the violent tendencies of the offense on which they're charged. Our most violent offenders, several of them have no bond. So those aren't the cases we're talking about. We're talking about the low-level felonies or the individuals who get a cash bond. In Madison County, we do risk assessments. We figure out the likelihood of that person to show up for their court date. Again, how many times have they failed to appear before? Ability to pay really has no place in that determination. In the jail right now, most offenders only serve 90 days or less, actually. So 2/3 of the individuals that are in pretrial incarceration in Madison County are in there 90 days or less. Over almost half are 30 days or less. The individuals that Mr. Hayne was talking about that are in over a year, you're talking about murderers, child predators, predatory sexual assault cases. Those individuals, those aren't the ones that necessarily would be even eligible for cash bond. And the reason some of those cases take so long is because they're entitled to a defense and a fair defense. And the state's attorney's office wants to do it right. It's more important to do it correctly than to do it quickly. And the victims in Madison County deserve to have their cases handled appropriately, and the defendants have rights as well. So speeding up cases less than a year, that's something that, having never done these kinds of cases, I wouldn't expect him to know, but those cases take time. Thank you.
Thank you, state's attorneys candidates. We now have questions from the audience. Some will be directed to the individual, and the other ones will be directed to both of you. The first question for both of you is, would you hire an ex-felon whose record has been expunged and has proper criteria for the job?
Depends on the person, right? That's the wonderful thing about America. Every individual person is judged on his or her own merits. So we need to build a team at the Madison County State's Attorney's Office that can go to trial and win every day. It's never afraid of going to trial, and that scares the living daylights out of defense attorneys because they don't want to go to trial. So we need to build that team, and I'm willing to consider any person on that team so long as they fit the legal requirements for serving in that position, so long as they have a law license. Who can help me build the team that will make us all safer. That's the fundamental principle. So we're all judged individually. We all need to be given a second chance. And if you can be part of that team, I want to have you in that courtroom. Thank you.
Absolutely. As I said before, I believe in second chances. So individuals that have an expunged felony record, they're not ineligible to work at the Madison County State's Attorney's Office. Every single person deserves to be measured by their own merit and their own abilities. I myself have served as a job reference for former defendants and former people that have been through the system. So I believe in second chances, and absolutely there would not be a blanket rule that somebody that wants to better themselves or maybe has a criminal history, it would not make them ineligible to work in my office.
Thank you. This came from an individual out in the audience. As in the past, I realized that young black men receives more time in prison than others. What will you do to be fair, especially with the first-time offenders? She has a story. My grandson was a first-time offender, was given 10 years at 85%, and is still serving time.
So race has should not be considered as a factor in charging or in dispositions. Race, sex, poverty, gender, none of those are factors that should be taken into consideration. So without being able to comment on the exact particulars of that case, I would do everything in my power to make sure that the state's attorney's office represents everyone in Madison County, regardless of their walk in life, and represents them equally and fairly across the board. And I think that's the number one duty of the state's attorney's office, to make sure that justice and fairness is provided to everybody, and that every victim in every walk in life gets the same representation and fight from each of the prosecutors of the state's attorney's office. Race should have no factor in that.
I completely agree. I think that question reveals, though, a real hurt, a real sense that the system is not working for this questioner and her grandson. Maybe this was Joyce. I talked to Joyce before we started here, and she related a similar story to me. You know, it's a great tragedy that segments of our population, the black community in particular right now, is feeling like the justice system isn't working for them, that they are being, that there is unfairness at the root of the justice system. That's a great tragedy, and that needs to be understood, I think, by the justice system. And I'm from Alton. I'm from this community. You know, my godmother lives over on Central Avenue. She's a black Catholic that my parents met when she was in the when she was working for DCFS, and I was over cutting weeds at her house over on Central. I know this community, and I know that there is a hurt at the root of the black community. Now, I want to do what I can as state's attorney to let everyone in our community know that they have access to my office. My office has an open door policy. I want to hear concerns. I want information flow coming in, because without information, you don't know what's going on. So we need to do our part to come together. Everyone needs to come together in Madison County, Alton in particular, this neighborhood, and make it better for everyone. And if there are people who think the system is not working for them, I want to hear about it, because I want to know why. So, and with that being said, you know, the individualization of each case is so important. You need to have that background, that knowledge, that personal connection, so that people know that they trust you to make the right decision, and then you need to approach every case on its individual merits and do justice by that person, not just to prove a point. So we need to do more, we need to do better, and I want to do my part as state's attorney to lead that charge and make Madison County justice work for everyone and make a safe community for every neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. The last question. What is the most pressing problem you assess that needs your skills and expertise to address?
I think that in Madison County, we have a horrible drug epidemic going on. 1/3 of the felony cases that we charge are drug possession cases. And we figured out a long time ago that you cannot arrest your way through this problem. We have to figure out other ways to provide resources to not just address the drug addiction issue, but also the underlying symptoms and the causes of these issues. I'm very proud of our drug treatment court and our veterans court in Madison County. It's $22,000 a year to incarcerate somebody, but it's $4,000 a year to put them through the drug court system. And it's essentially free to the county in order to put them through the veterans court because of the resources from the VA. So by using those resources and looking at employment and looking at the underlying issues, we can attack this drug problem in the beginning before individuals end up with convictions and with records that we were talking about before. So I think the most pressing issue is the drug epidemic. I also, as Madison County State's Attorney, I look forward to expanding our prosecution of cold case homicides. I've had the experience of prosecuting at least 2 cold case homicides in the last 2 years. And there's many, many more victims out there that are awaiting justice on their cases. I would like to spend resources on expanding and using my experience and my training to bring closure to those cases so that individuals here in Alton, Michael Womack's family, Deron Hearn, Kayla Rexford, Julie Gottlob, I want them to know that their family members have not been forgotten by the state's attorney's office, and that our state's attorney's office will bring closure and will bring justice to those families.
All right, let's give our state's attorneys, candidates a hand. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Rosetta.
You're welcome.
What was the question again? No, I'm just kidding. So I think the reason why I ran for state's attorney, the reason why I think I could serve well in the position, is because I think I have the experience as a military prosecutor to bring leadership to the office and to move cases quickly. I think that justice delayed is justice denied. We can do better. I had a probation officer, I won't say names, who Facebook messaged me last week, and he said, "You won't believe it. You don't know me, but you won't believe it. I'm handling cases from 2017. If you hear, whenever there's another news story about a conviction, check the date on when the actual crime occurred. These cases are taking too long. We can do better, and we can do justice better, because these victims are waiting for justice." So I think leadership really plays a role in that, and putting the fire under this system to get moving. And I would say this, I only have 1 more minute. This doesn't have anything to do with the state's attorney's race, but this is my last chance up here. Rosetta's going to cut me off. But this is my 5-year-old son's 5th birthday. And it's not very often that a father has a captive audience. Hey, Joseph Hain! Joseph Hain! He's got the Spider-Man helmet on. But it's his 5th birthday today. 5 years ago today, he was born. He's a wonderful child. I'm so proud of him. You don't have to run over Joe, but you can do it. But I thought it would be incredibly great if everyone could sing him happy birthday. So join me, if you will. Happy birthday to you, Joe. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, dear Joe. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you for the indulgence. I appreciate it. I hope to talk to many of you after and answer all the other great questions that Rosetta almost didn't let me answer. So thank you.
About that. Thank you. Let's give our state's attorney candidates a hand. Great job. Great job. Thank you. Next, we will have our circuit clerk candidates, and we would like for them to come up, Tom McCrae and Amy Gabriel. And they will be introducing themselves. We will start with Tom McCrae.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you all for coming out tonight. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate the hospitality. I'm not from Alton. I grew up in Meadowbrook, but as a kid, I remember some of my fondest memories. My mom, I'm one of 7 kids. My mom would load up the station wagon and we would go to, Sears or Snyder's or Montgomery Ward. That's probably a blast from the past for some of you. But I was going to introduce my wife, Patty, but I think her phone started ringing. And can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Her phone rang. There's my wife. There's my wife, Patty. And my daughter, Meg, is here. And my grandson in the carriage there is 4 months old. He'll be baptized at St. Mary's here in a couple of weeks. But I really appreciate y'all having me. One of the reasons I decided to run for circuit clerk is because I believe that I've got the life experience. I've not only in the private sector but in the public sector to bring something to the table, and I'm excited about it, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Go ahead. Hi, everybody. Hi, my name's Amy Gabriel, and I am a candidate to be your next circuit clerk here in Madison County. I am so excited to see all of you here tonight, to have the opportunity to talk to voters and our friends and family here in Madison County. So thank you to the YWCA for giving us this opportunity to look in your eyes and see you and just explain why I want to work for you, why I want to work for our community. I want to be your next circuit clerk because I am a courthouse expert and I'm ready to serve. I'm a courthouse expert because for the last 20 years, I have been an attorney here in your community in Madison County. I've worked civil cases and criminal cases, and I've been in almost every courtroom in that courthouse. And I speak the language that goes on there every day. The circuit clerk and the deputy clerks are in charge of the business of the courthouse. All of the legal filings, all of the fees and fines, that's what the circuit clerk is in charge of. And I believe it takes somebody who's been in that courthouse, who's lived in that courthouse, who's worked with the judges and the attorneys and the clerks, and most importantly, the community that comes in through that courthouse every day. That's why I believe that I am the one with the knowledge and experience to be your circuit clerk. I'm also running because I'm ready to serve. I grew up in Madison County, in Collinsville, then in Edwardsville. I live now in Glen Carbon with my family, and this community means the world to me. I have been in public service through the prosecutor's office, prosecuting child abuse cases, but also on different boards and trying to give my time to give back to this community that's done so much for me. And so when this job became available, when Mark Venida said he wasn't going to run, I just took a minute and talked to my 2 girls and said, I think I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. I think this is a chance for me to serve this community that I love so much, and I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. The first question will be directed to Amy. Equity in hiring and appointments. equity in hiring and appointments. What steps will you take as circuit clerk to hire more people of color? How will you accomplish this?
Thank you, Rosie. So certainly it was talked about with our state's attorney's candidates, and it's something that we need to keep talking about, and that's the issue of equity. And race is certainly one of those considerations, but as your circuit clerk, I want to tell you that my focus will be on an equitable court and an equitable system for all of our community, for every person that walks in through those courthouse doors, to make sure that they're treated fairly, that they're given the help that they need, and that they're given respect. And that's for race, that's for sex, that's for sexual orientation, that's for ability. All of those things mean that we need to have equitable local government. And in my mind right now, if we look at the numbers at the circuit clerk's office, there's 81 deputy clerks, and there are 6 that are minorities. And I believe that we can do better. If you look at the county as a whole, 11% of our county is minorities. So we already need to do better. And I want to say that we're just going to continue to increase that percentage. I also think it would be really important to have a Latino, a Spanish speaker, to help our public every day, to help our community. And that's a focus. Right now, that needs to be the discussion. I'm listening and learning and trying to do my best to accept and hear the pain and the real issues that we're having right now with distrust. And to tell you all that I'm here to listen to that I want to do my best to make sure that our local government is working for all of you, because that's what our local government is about. It's about our citizens. And to, after an acceptance is reached, to have an understanding and an implementation of an office that's accepting, that is equitable, and also then for the community to feel that, and that we can keep good workers, regardless of race or sex or their background, that they feel included and welcome. Thank you.
Well, that's an excellent question, and I think Amy made a good point. There's 81 employees in the circuit clerk's office, and only 6 are African Americans, and I think we can do better than that. We should do better than that. In fact, today I was on a WebEx about diversity in the workplace, and I think we all need to make sure and embrace diversity with males, females, black, white, because everybody brings something to the table, and I think we need to make sure that we're giving everybody every opportunity to excel. And I think that we should value other people's opinions and their perspective, and by having diversity, you really do enhance the workplace and you enhance the experience for everybody involved. So that's my commitment as if I'm elected as circuit clerk, to make sure that everybody comes in the hiring situation to feel like they really do have an equal shot. And I think it's really incredibly important to have diversity, and that's how I would conduct myself. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is pro se access. The circuit clerk's office is often the first contact pro se litigants and people with traffic or misdemeanor charges filed against them have with the court system in Madison County. Your predecessors have expanded access to the office by the public, for example, by installing computers in the lobby of the courthouse and satellite offices in Alton, Collinsville, and Granite City for the public to look up court records. The Madison County Bar Association have worked with your predecessors to provide online forms for small claim complaints, divorce, probate matter, landlord-tenant issues, and so forth. With the advent of widespread e-filing here in the county, what will you, as circuit clerk, do to make sure the public continues to have access to filing pro se complaints, answers to lawsuits, and other legal documents? We're going to start with
Thank you,
Amy.
Rosie. Thank you. So regarding pro se litigants, the first thing that I want to share with you all is the fact that when I was a prosecutor at the state's attorney's office, I was in our courtroom 103, as we all call it, our traffic and misdemeanor courtroom. And I spent many, many years of my early prosecutor days in that courtroom. And I talked with our community. A lot of people come through that courtroom that don't have attorneys, and they have traffic tickets, they have minor misdemeanor manners. And I would have conversations trying to understand, hey, your driver's license is suspended. Let's talk about how you can get it reinstated. Oh, you've got this on your record, as the expungements were talked about, and First Assistant State's Attorney Crystal Uwe is doing expungement days to help people. If we can get this off your record, then maybe at the next job interview, it'll go a little bit differently. And just having these conversations so that you're not just coming to court to deal with that particular moment, but that maybe there could be something holistic, something into the future that could be done. So having those communications, having that experience, I believe as your circuit clerk, then I will give that and share that knowledge with all the clerks, have them understand that that's what most of the people coming through the courthouse are dealing with, and have the eye towards helping, have the eye towards giving them those resources. And because I know what it is to talk to pro se litigants, because I did it all the time, I believe that they are important in terms of making sure we've got the computers out in the community. We need to continue to allow them to e-file and do things like give compliance of insurance or other paperwork, so we don't even have to spend the resources on court calls, on dockets, on paper, on postage. All of those are things that we can continue to look towards in the future, and I am excited to try and find more ability and access for all of our pro se litigants. The Madison County Bar Association, which I'm a part of, is also very, very helpful in trying to help our community in the courthouse. So that's what I would do. Thank you, Rosie.
Well, I think the pro se litigants, they really are. It's more and more people are trying to represent themselves, or are in a position to have to represent themselves and can't afford an attorney. And so I think we should make sure and educate the public for all the resources we have available for those who are representing themselves, and to make it as easy as possible and as comfortable as possible to allow that. I think of, if I'm elected circuit clerk, I'm going to put together a panel of minorities and women and other people who touch the circuit clerk's office to find out what their experience is and to see how we can improve it. One of them would be people that are representing themselves. I think that, like I said, more and more people I know are in small claims courts and other things are really, taking that upon themselves, and we should make it as easy as possible to make that happen. And that's my commitment if I'm elected a circuit clerk. Thank you.
Tom, can you please remain?
Yes.
Thank you. The next subject is improvements in office. What, if anything, would you change in the way the circuit clerk's office is operated if you are elected as circuit clerk?
Well, first of all, I want to say that, I don't come in with any preconceived notions about the circuit clerk's office. And in fact, I think they do a good job. But I think my experience in the private sector and in the public sector is we can always do better. And I think among those would be, as the previous question, how can we help people, assist them in representing themselves? How can we make sure that that's a viable option for folks? I think other things that I would do to improve the office, I'd like to look at every aspect. Like I said, anybody who touches the court system, talk with the judges, the lawyers, the person coming in, paying a speeding ticket. How can we make the process better? Because I think the taxpayers deserve it, and I think employees want to do that. And I would have a program where people feel like the employees feel empowered to let their supervisors or have a open communication for how we can improve the process. And so I think I would start with the employees, reach out to the community, find out what the community experience is, and include those best practices. Thank you.
So I do want to say that having practiced in not only Madison County, that's the main area that I have worked in, but going to other circuit clerks' offices and working with other counties here in the state of Illinois as well as in Missouri and throughout the country, Madison County is one of the best circuit clerks' offices around. It really is. Mark Benida has done an amazing job, and the deputy clerks there that work very hard for our community every day are doing fabulous work. But as your circuit clerk, I believe that there's always things that we can talk about. There's always more that we can do. And I certainly want to just repeat what we've already talked about as really some of the main priorities that I'm going to have. The community and the way in which our public is treated when they come through those courthouse doors is really, in my mind, one of the main priorities for circuit clerk. And so wanting to make sure that there is a feeling of fairness and inclusion and equity, and that that's not only echoed in the courthouse, but specifically among the deputy clerks in that office. I have made it clear and continue to say to all of you that I am going to be working for you. And so in that regard, if there are issues, if there are questions, if there are things we need to talk about, I want to be available and open to you at any time. And certainly I do that with my team now at the law firm that I work with. I did that with my team as the chief of the Children's Justice Division at the prosecutor's office, and I will continue to do that as circuit clerk. I want to make sure that we can do our best work. I want to do my best and my best work and work hard, and I expect that of everyone else in the office. I also think it's really important to continue to expand the ability for people to do their compliance work, to file their paperwork, to have access to computers and to the e-filing that is really taken over the courthouse. We need to make sure that all communities in our Madison County have the ability to do that so that everyone has access to the courthouse. Thank you.
We will now address questions from the audience. Question number 1. Would you hire an ex-felon whose record has been expunged and has proper criteria for the job? Tom.
Well, I think that I would, it would depend on the felony, and it would depend on the person. But I would certainly, if the record has been expunged, I would certainly, I think we need to give people a second chance. And I think that's one of the things that I really do believe in. I think a lot of times people get caught up in the court system as youngsters. We need to be, people need to be better mentors. That's something I've tried to do my entire adult life, by, coaching teams and in the Alto Boys and Girls Club. I think the most important thing is in keeping kids in school. I think I think people would be surprised how many kids drop out of high school. So I think what we need to do first of all is to keep them out of the court system, and then give them a second chance if they do make a mistake, and give them every opportunity to bring them back into society and be performing members of society. So I would certainly give them, I would not exclude them. I would give them every opportunity to explain themselves, and I would love to give somebody a second opportunity, a second chance. So thank you.
So I believe that answer, like our fellow candidates have said, it really depends on the candidate, but certainly I would be open to that. I think that depending on the person and depending on their want to be a part of the circuit clerk's office, their ability to communicate and get along with others and all the things that go into working in a public service job like that, those are the things that I would look at alongside with a criminal history, but that certainly would not be a determining factor in my mind. And in asking that question, it reminded me of a time when I was picking a jury, and I had a gentleman on my jury panel and had some run-ins because both sides are privy to the criminal histories, but I just felt that he was going to be fair and impartial, and even if other folks would have said differently. I decided that he was going to be somebody that I wanted to be able to have on this jury, and he was. He ended up staying, and I believe that that was the right decision. I don't think that you can just paint with a broad brush and just say, well, this means that they're somebody that we can't talk to, that isn't going to do good work here, because we're all complicated, we're all human beings, but that's what makes us all bonded together. We might not always agree on every single thing, but we certainly have a lot more in common than what we have that is not in common. And I want to make sure that that's something, honestly, one of the reasons why I decided to run for office was just the divisiveness and the terribleness and the negativity. I want it to be better for our kids and for our families. And so to be open-minded and to say, I'm not going to just say no automatically to certain things, to try and be open and inclusive, that's me, and that's certainly going to be my priority.
Amy, can you please remain? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think it is important to have an attorney as circuit clerk? And if so, why?
Well, I do think it's important. We have not had an attorney yet as our circuit clerk here in Madison County, but I believe it will be an asset to all of you as I'll be working for all of you. I believe you would want to have an attorney. That's an extra bonus in terms of your circuit clerk. The reason being, the circuit clerk implements and is the one that is going to have laws from the state of Illinois, administrative orders, specifically from our Chief Judge Mudge in Madison County, and everything in between that will come through the circuit clerk's office that mandates how fees and fines are going to be paid out, that mandates what sort of forms and what sort of help we need to provide to the judges to administer that justice. And if you have an attorney that can help, that has the experience in having done those cases and been in those courtrooms and reading pleadings and filing pleadings, representing clients and victims, I think that can only help in the ability to do the work of the circuit clerk, the work of the courthouse every day. So I'm excited to have our first attorney in the circuit clerk's office. I really think it'll be a helpful thing for our community. But I also want to make clear that as an attorney, I am no longer able to practice law as your circuit clerk. It's going to be my full-time job to work for you, to work in that courthouse, and to make sure that the administration of justice is happening in the best way that it can every day. Thanks.
Well, I guess the obvious answer I would have is no. You don't need to be an attorney, because I'm not an attorney. But I think in the history of Madison County, I don't think there's ever been an attorney who's been circuit clerk. The thing that I think is important is there's a number. It's a multi-million-dollar budget. We have 80 some odd employees in the circuit clerk's office. There are a number of different stakeholders that you have to interact with that include not only the judges and the lawyers, but the public at large. And I think we need to make sure that we focus on the people who really are coming into the circuit clerk's office for maybe for the first time ever, and make that office as easy to work with and as with a high degree of public services as possible. And so I think that what's important is life experience. And like I said, it's managing a multi-million-dollar budget. It's managing 80 people, and it's being accountable to numerous stakeholders, most importantly, the general public who is experiencing the circuit clerk's office. Thank you.
Tom, can you please remain?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. What knowledge and experience do you have that would make you the best candidate for circuit clerk?
Well, I think it's life experience. I spent my entire career largely, in the private sector. That's where I really made my living. Although I've held public office now for 20 years, I was a Wood River Township trustee, and for the last 8 or 9 years, I've been a county board member from Bethalto. And it's a privilege to hold public office. And I've always been, humbled to actually, be representing other people. And I think it's something that we should take very seriously. I think as far as my public service goes, I've served on a number of different committees. I'm on the Finance Committee. I chair the Transportation Committee. I had formerly been on the Grants Committee and on the Public Safety Committee. And so I bring a lot of experience, I think, in the workings of the county, the budgets, the revenues and the expenses. And I think that's the perspective that I would bring to the table is a more rounded life experience and not just focusing on the attorneys and those aspects of it. Thank you.
So I feel that to have this little time with you tonight, I want to just share that I have lots of different reasons why I'm wanting to work for you, lots of different parts of my skill set that I will bring to the table as your circuit clerk, one of which is the fact that I've been an attorney in our town, and you've heard me talk about that. But I'm also other things. I wear a lot of different hats. I have been a public service through my work, through my work, but I also have served on different boards in our community for things that I believe are important and are paying back, that are giving to our community and trying to make sure that our kids in particular are taken care of. I've been on the board for our Madison County Child Advocacy Center for over 10 years. And that's a center in Wood River. I'm going to give it a quick pitch if you haven't heard about it. But it's a center where children of abuse or neglect go to be interviewed in a child-friendly environment. And it's really an important part of our community, and not a lot of people know that it exists. But it's something that I hold near and dear to my heart. I have served also on our Glen Carbon Library Board, trying to give back and help our community in that way. And I just believe that as your circuit clerk, as I stated earlier, with this as an opportunity for me to serve all of you and work for you all in this way, it just brings together all of the different parts of my life that have led me to this moment. All of those life moments have brought me here. And I think I'll be able to use all of that. I really am a relationship builder. I'm somebody that has been out in the community in all sorts of different ways. Yes, legally, also as a mom of 2 daughters. I've got all my mom friends that I talk to on these different boards, and just being out and about in our community. This experience, just running for the last year that I've been doing and talking to so many of you, a lot of you came tonight, and thank you for coming. It's been a life-changing thing, regardless of how this works out. And so I stand with all of you, and I believe I will carry all that experience with me as your next circuit clerk.
All right, let's give our circuit clerk candidates a hand. Wonderful job. Thank you. Thank you. All right, next to our stage will be our county board chair candidate, Mr. Bob Dyber. Kurt Prinzler was invited, but we did not get a response. So we do have Mr. Bob Dyber here, and he will be introducing himself.
Thank you, Rosie. And it's great to be here tonight with you. I feel that I probably passed out more literature tonight than I did since March 1st. So thanks for braving being here, and enjoy having an opportunity to speak with you. I'm Bob Dyber. I live in Marine, Illinois with my wife Karen, which is on the other side of the county, which tells you that Madison County is a big county, it's a diverse county. I'm proud to be a 5th generation Madison County resident, and I'm proud that I've worked my entire life in Madison County. As some of you may know, my last 12 years of my career, I was the regional superintendent of schools. And I was proud to give service to this community. I believe if you ask past superintendents, whether it's Dave Elson, Ken Spells, or currently Mark Capel, they will tell you that Bob Dyber has been fair and impartial in all of his professional dealings with our communities. I want you to know this, that why I'm running for county chairman is because this region needs true leadership. It needs regional leadership that will bring people together, and that's what I think I can do for you. I have served in the capacity as a village trustee, a township supervisor. I served on the county board when we did some really big things, like the America Central Port, like the McKinley Bridge project, beginning the Gateway Commerce Center, and building Governor's Parkway in Edwardsville. And we can do big things again in this community because there's so much potential in Madison County, but it takes true leadership and it takes an initiative to want to get things done and to include communities and to work with mayors and to work with township supervisors to help people and to move this county forward. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. The first question, the subject is vote by mail. This is a question about voting by mail. 5 states now provide for voting by mail where all registered voters are sent their ballot ahead of the election. 28 states allow for no excuse voting by mail where ballots have to be requested. 17 states allow voting by mail only for cause. Illinois is one of the 28 states which allow no excuse voting by mail. But recently, the General Assembly amended the law to require that each county clerk mail a request for a ballot to every person who voted in elections in 2018, 19, or the primary election in 2020. This may increase costs for the county clerk's office in the short term. As county executive, will you support fully funding the costs needed to accomplish this new procedure?
Definitely, because vote by mail is a true representation of democracy for all people. If you have an opportunity to vote by mail, you do not have an excuse that you couldn't get to the polls. And we know what confronts us this fall with this pandemic. Don't be fooled by skepticism that you hear that your ballot may not get there if you vote by mail. That is false. That is why I support vote by mail, because it's a safe, it's an effective way for us to carry out our democracy in all communities and in all parts of the county.
Thank you. The next subject is budget. If the voters approve the general fund tax rate cut on the general fund tax rate cut on the November ballot, what will you propose to cut if there is a budget shortfall due to the rate cut? County offices already operate on thin margins, especially the county health department. What specifically will you propose to cut?
Well, let me just start with my office. I will cut every additional administrative person that this administration has hired. Unnecessary. I will hire one competent county administrator. I will cut my salary 20%, and I will start with myself as an example. Okay? I will not do what the county board did to Bob Dyber and cut his budget 20%, which was vindictive as the regional superintendent. That county board cut my budget 20% politically, took it out on me, and made it hard on me. I will not do that to fellow office holders, no matter what party that they belong to. I will not use politics in my office to settle budget problems. And I will tell you one more thing. There was a question asked about from schools to prison. I am the individual who is an elected official who kept kids from going to jail because I operated a safe school in Troy, and I fought the county board to keep that building open. And I will fight as the county chairman to keep those services for those kids so they don't wind up in the detention home. Okay? That is what I have done as an elected official and will continue to advocate for as your next county chairman.
All right, thank you, thank you. All right. The next question, equity in hiring and appointments. A cursory survey of 288 positions controlled by hire or appointment to jobs and commissions in Madison County, which are initiated by the county board chair, shows that there are, at the present time, approximately 10 people of color who occupy one of these positions, and 5 of those are on one commission. Thus, roughly only 3.5% of the positions are filled by people of color, despite the fact that people of color comprise about 11% of the population of Madison County. If 11% of these appointments were filled by people of color, that would translate to 30 people, not just 10. As county board chair, will you commit to hire, nominate, and/or appoint more people of color to Madison County's jobs and commissions? If so, how will you accomplish this?
Well, Rosie, I will tell you, I'm going to begin with just saying this. I had coffee with Bobby Collins the other morning, and someone asked Bobby about Bob Dyber appointing blacks, and he said, well, if you know him, if you ever walked in his office, the person you saw when you walked in was a lady of color, Roz Johnson. If you looked in my office, probably 30% of my staff when I was there were people of color. Bobby Collins served as the Regional Board of School Trustees president, and Rosie, not to call you out, but you know you followed him in that position. And when you left, I appointed Maxine Jackson Caldwell. So I don't believe there's a question about Bob Dyber appointing people of color to committees or to positions of power in my administration. But what you can't have is you can't have 4 white guys in a room making that decision. That's what you can't have, and that's what you have right now. What you've got to have is you've got to have a diverse administration that's making the decision, and you have to get racism out of the county board chairman's office.
All right, thank you, thank you. Questions from the audience. Do you advocate cutting the sheriff's budget to promote Black Lives Matter issues?
Well, when you talk about cutting the sheriff's budget, there's an issue on cost of operating the jail. I think we talked about some things earlier like eliminating bail bond, okay, which I support on low offending crimes. You know, as cost with the jail escalate and increase cost, I wouldn't cut the sheriff's budget and perish someone's betterment of the time in which they're staying in jail, whether it's some recreational item that they may be provided with, or if it's the nature and the quality of their food and their care and their medical care, okay? Because there are people who are in jail that get sick that have to have medical care. So I don't intend to cut any budgets, okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Next question from the audience. Please explain how your tax or retirement income will help the budget pension problem.
Would you repeat that? I want to make sure I answer that right.
Okay. Please explain how your tax or retirement income will help the budget pension problem.
Okay. Well, let's just say this. One, I don't need another pension, okay? So if that's what you're asking, I can forego IMRF. I mean, I know there's a big issue right now about people talking about double dipping. I have one pension. I worked 40 years for it. I'm proud of it. I earned it. I went to college 10 years to get to where I was in my career. But this is what I believe. I mean, as next county chairman, I can forego a lot of benefits because I have them. And it will help the budget considerably because I don't need benefits that currently are being paid out to some people. I don't need the salary that's being paid out. I don't think the chairman's salary should be a 6-figure salary. I'll just tell you that. I believe that the county board chairman should do his diligence, do his job, and lead by example. And if you're going to make pensions an issue, you don't hire other people who are getting pensions also.
And the last question is, do you plan on addressing systematic racism, and are you in favor of banning the chokehold in Madison County?
I will begin answering at the end. The chokehold, definitely. Definitely oppose the chokehold. We've seen the end result of it. And what will I do to rid Madison County of systematic racism? It's like this. You, first of all, cannot endorse a national racist agenda as a candidate. That's number one. Number two, you have to have an inclusive administration. You have to have people around you that can address and that can help people of all racial backgrounds. And that's how we end it, because you have to have people close to you in your administration, close as Doc Holliday is to me, that's going to help advise me if I become your next chairman. People like Bobby Collins, who I've been close with my entire career. People like Leon Smallwood, who I sit down and talk to about how we can make Madison County better by helping youth who are at risk. That's how you end systematic racism. That's how you do it. But you've got to have people in your circle that are helping you make those decisions.
That ends our discussion with you, Mr. Dyber. Thank you so
Can I
much.
just make one closing statement?
Yes.
I would just like to say this to the residents of Alton. For my entire professional and political career, I've came here and I've had just overwhelming great reception from you, and I just want to say thank you, and I'm really happy of the number of young people that I helped in this community that are now successful. So if you ask your neighbors and you ask other people in Alton about my character and what I have done to try to help young people from this community, I think you'll get a straight up answer. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all the candidates. You all did a wonderful job. And if you look around, we have a lot of young people here on today. Let's give them a hand also. They were very engaged. I would like to say that I was very honored to be your moderator on tonight, and you being our guest, we just appreciate it. We will now turn our program over to Minister Joyce Elliott. Let's give her a hand.
First of all, I would like to thank Rosie for doing such a great job serving as the moderator. Let's give her a hand. And I would also like to recognize one of our long-standing public servants who has retired, none other than former State's Attorney Bill Hain. Let's give him a hand. It's always a blessing to see him. And tonight I want to thank each and every one of our candidates that came on to speak tonight. Krista Yuhi and Tom Hain, for the State's Attorney's Office, Circuit Clerks, candidates Tom McCrae and Amy Gabriel, and County Board Chairperson candidate none other than Mr. Bob Dyber. Let's give them all a hand. Those who are remaining here tonight, just a reminder, look on your dollar bill and it says something that we all read if we look at it. What does it say? In God we trust. So that must be a major factor in the decisions that we make. I want to remind you, voting is no joke. Voting is a privilege. Voting is an opportunity. Voting is our responsibility. So please, the upcoming election, review your candidates, get to know them by asking questions. If they make themselves available to you, then you know whether you can hold them in an accountability state or not. And then, last but not least, always remember that your vote is your voice. Your vote determines our future. So we just want to make sure that we are concerned enough as citizens of the city of Alton and citizens of Madison County to exercise our right to vote. Thank you. Oh, yeah. While you're here tonight, I want to remind you too, if you have not registered to vote, there's a voter's registration table over there. And also we have, if you choose to vote by mail, you can pick up your application tonight to vote by mail. Thank you.
Have a good evening. Thank you very much.
you.